In the early 7th century, the ancient Yamato court suffered from deep internal divisions caused by the rapid rise of the powerful Soga clan. The clan leaders Soga no Emishi and his ambitious son Soga no Uruka consistently bypassed the authority of the imperial family to decide who would succeed to the vacant throne. This blatant usurpation of power by the Soga leaders generated immense anger among the loyal imperial princes. Prince Naka no O closely observed this overbearing behavior of the Soga clan and began planning a secret movement to restore executive authority to the emperor. He understood that the outdated clan-based political structure could no longer protect the nation against major geopolitical shifts across East Asia. The young prince resolved to find dependable allies who shared his vision for reorganizing the administration. Among the senior officials serving in the imperial capital of Asuka, Nakatomi no Kamatari was also deeply troubled by the deteriorating state of the Yamato dynasty. Coming from a lineage traditionally responsible for conducting sacred Shinto rituals, Kamatari harbored a strong resentment toward the rapid expansion of Buddhism sponsored by Soga leaders. He actively searched for a capable royal leader to support. To avoid the surveillance of Soga spies, Prince Naka no O and Nakatomi no Kamatari organized secret meetings at the Hokojai Temple compound. They used the pretext of playing traditional Kemari kickball games to discuss political strategies without raising suspicion among rival factions. These quiet discussions on the athletic field eventually laid the conceptual foundation for a coup against the Soga household. During one particular Kemari match in the courtyard of Hokojai Temple, Prince Naka no O's shoe accidentally slipped off his foot. Nakatomi no Kamatari quickly retrieved the fallen footwear and knelt before the prince to present it back to him with great respect. This polite gesture solidified their mutual trust and marked the formal beginning of their secret alliance to reform Yamato. The two reformers also attended lectures at the private academy of scholar Minabuchi, no Shon to avoid drawing the attention of the court. Under Shon's guidance, they studied ancient Chinese administrative texts and political philosophies recently brought back from the Tang Dynasty. These concepts of central authority helped them design a modern bureaucratic structure for their own country. Scholar Minabuchi no Shon taught them the basic principles of a centralized state, governed directly by an absolute ruler. They studied how Emperor Tang Taizong managed a vast territory through written legal codes and a structured system of official ranks. These ideas provided the political arguments they needed to plan the abolition of the traditional clan-based system. Meanwhile, Soga no Emishi and Soga no Uruka displayed increasing arrogance by constructing fortified residential compounds on Mount Unebai. They boldly referred to these private houses as imperial palaces and granted royal titles to their children as if they were actual princes. This extreme disregard for traditional hierarchy directly challenged the sovereign authority of Empress Kagyoku. The height of this usurpation occurred when Soga no Uruka ordered his troops to surround and force Prince Yamashiro no O to commit suicide at Ikaruga Temple. Prince Yamashiro no O, the son of the revered Prince Shotoku, held great influence and popularity among the general population. This violent execution convinced the remaining Yamato royal family members that they had to take swift action. Nakatomi no Kamatari recognized that the opportunity had arrived and began recruiting skilled warriors to prepare for a sudden coup. He successfully convinced Soga no Kurayamada no Ishikawamaro to join the conspirators, effectively dividing the Soga clan from within. The plan to assassinate Uruka was meticulously drafted, involving a small group of highly trained palace guards. Soga no Uruka was an exceptionally cautious leader, who always carried a sharp sword for personal protection against unexpected attacks. Uruka also placed numerous armed sentries around his private residence, making any close approach extremely difficult. The prince's alliance needed to find a public event that would force Uruka to appear without his typical protective guards. An ideal opportunity arose when the Yamato court prepared to hold a formal reception for envoys from the three Korean kingdoms of Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla. This major diplomatic event required the attendance of all senior ministers, including Soga no Uruka at the imperial palace. Prince Naka no O decided to use this gathering to execute their plan. Nakatomi no Kamatari secretly brought weapons into the Itabuki Palace, and hid them behind the large hanging fabric curtains of the main imperial hall. He also positioned 4 highly skilled swordsmen in the dark corners of the chamber to await the signal for action. Every entrance to the palace compound was closely guarded by reliable soldiers. On the 12th day of the 6th month in 645, the official ceremony for the Korean ambassadors began inside the Itabuki Palace in Asuka. Empress Kagyoku sat upon her imperial throne to observe the formal reading of the diplomatic documents from foreign kingdoms. Soga no Uruka entered the central chamber and occupied a prominent seat reserved for key ministers. According to the plan, Soga no Kura Yamato no Ishikawa was responsible for reading the state documents to the gathered court. The intense pressure caused Ishikawa to tremble visibly and sweat profusely, which quickly aroused the suspicion of Soga no Uruka. When Uruka demanded an explanation, Ishikawa claimed he was simply nervous before the empress's presence. Seeing the hesitation of the designated assassins, Prince Naka no O personally grabbed a long spear and charged from behind the curtains. The prince rushed directly towards Soga no Uruka and struck the powerful minister in the head and shoulder before the shocked court. This sudden blow left Uruka severely wounded on the palace floor. Soga no Uruka desperately crawled toward the imperial seat of Empress Kagyoku, pleading for the protection of the royal house. However, Prince Naka no O loudly accused the Soga clan of usurpation and the murder of various imperial family members. Empress Kagyoku was so shocked by the violence in her presence that she immediately retreated. The conspirators then finished off Soga no Uruka right in the middle of the wooden floor of the Itabuki Palace. The body of the former minister was thrown out into the courtyard as a warning to other rebellious factions. This historic event, known as the Ishii Incident, permanently ended the dominance of the Soga family. Hearing news of his son's death, Soga no Emishi realized that the golden age of his clan was over and withdrew. Emishi set fire to his own fortified residence, committing suicide to prevent his wealth from falling to the surrounding imperial troops. The raging fire completely destroyed the grand Soga villa constructed on Mount Unebi. This destructive fire also destroyed invaluable historical archives kept inside the Soga residence, including the 2 national chronicles Tennoki and Kaki. Fortunately, a portion of the Kaki manuscript was saved from the flames by a quick-thinking soldier and presented directly to Prince Naka no O. This marked the absolute end of the Soga political hegemony. Following the violent Ishii incident, Empress Kagyoku decided to abdicate the throne because she was deeply shaken by the bloodshed. This marked the first recorded instance in Japanese history of a reigning monarch voluntarily relinquishing their position during their lifetime. Her abdication created a political vacuum that allowed the Reformist Alliance to establish a new government. Prince Naka no O wisely declined the crown on the advice of Nakatomi no Kamatari to avoid jealousy from other royal factions. Instead, they enthroned the prince's uncle, Prince Karu, who became known to history as Emperor Kadoku. Naka no O assumed the position of crown prince to manage the daily affairs of the state. Emperor Kadoku was an open-minded ruler who strongly supported adopting advanced administrative methods from the northern dynasties of China. Soon after his coronation, he appointed Nakatomi no Kamatari to the newly created office of Ukiyodomi to manage military and civil affairs. The new imperial court began recruiting the most highly educated scholars of the era. To consolidate their authority, Crown Prince Naka no O decided to move the capital from the traditional Asuka Valley to the coastal area of Naniwakayo. Located at a strategic trade junction near Osaka Bay, Naniwakayo facilitated foreign commerce and the reception of foreign envoys. This migration helped the court escape the influence of the older regional clans. At the new capital of Naniwakayo, the court officially declared the first era name of Japan, known as Taika, in the year 645. The term Taika translates to Great Reform, symbolizing their commitment to a comprehensive reorganization of the entire state. Adopting this era name followed the practice of Tang emperors to assert local sovereignty. The court appointed the scholar Takemuko no Kuramaro as a state advisor, with the official title Kuni no Hakase, to write the new legal structures. Kuramaro had lived for many years in the Tang capital of Chang'an, acquiring deep knowledge of Chinese administrative law. He served as a crucial guide for introducing Confucian principles into the administration. Alongside Kuramaro, the Buddhist monk Minabuchi no Shon also served as a senior consultant to assist in organizing the administrative frameworks. Shon's detailed explanations of Confucian text teachings helped court officials appreciate the absolute necessity of loyalty toward the emperor. The integration of philosophy and administration provided a stable theoretical base for the massive structural changes. The primary objective of the Taika Reforms was to abolish the traditional ujikabing system, which granted hereditary control over important government positions to local clans. Under this old system, powerful families like Soga and Mononobe could raise their own armies and extract taxes directly from farmers. Crown Prince Naka no O wanted to reclaim this power for the court. The new administration began by ordering all regional families to surrender their private weapons and land ownership records to the central government. Any local resistance was quickly suppressed by the imperial guards under the direct command of Crown Prince Naka no O. This military show of force convinced the local leaders that compliance was absolutely necessary. In the year 646, Emperor Kotoku officially issued the Reform Edict of Taika, containing 4 core articles that established the legal foundation of the new Japanese state. This administrative document marked the formal transition from a loose coalition of clans to a centralized monarchy. The imperial edict was proclaimed to the assembled court at the Naniwakayo capital. The first article of the edict abolished private ownership of land and citizens previously held by the regional clans. All territory and people within the Yamato realm were declared public assets under the direct authority of the emperor, establishing the state system of public land. This policy stripped the regional families of their economic power. The second article detailed the creation of a new administrative system that divided the entire country into provinces, districts, and villages. The central court would appoint provincial governors called kokushi to manage these territories instead of allowing hereditary chieftains to rule them. This administrative structure allowed the royal family to direct operations in distant areas. The third article of the Reform Edict demanded the systematic compilation of a nationwide population register called Koski, alongside comprehensive land surveys. Registering the population enabled the government to calculate the local labor force for agricultural allotment and tax distribution. The Koski became an effective instrument for the emperor to control all individual citizens directly. The fourth article abolished traditional clan tributes and replaced them with a unified system of taxation called the Soyocho structure. This tax system mandated that citizens pay their taxes using harvested rice, local craft goods, and mandatory labor services. This wealth flowed directly into the treasury of the imperial palace instead of local chieftains' vaults. To implement the third article, the administration dispatched land surveying officers to regional territories to establish permanent boundary marks. Ruined lands formerly owned by the Soga clan and their allies were confiscated and reallocated. This survey process was carried out under the surveillance of the imperial army to prevent any physical resistance from hostile local elites. This new land distribution mechanism was designated as the official Kyubundan system, which closely matched the successful land equalization policies of the Tang Dynasty. Under this nationwide policy, every citizen over the age of 6, regardless of status or gender, received a specific portion of agricultural land to cultivate rice crops for their personal survival. The allocation of Kyubundan land favored males over females, and enslaved people received a much smaller portion of agricultural space. Even with these differences, the policy of providing land to all citizens represented an unprecedented historical advance for the Yamato kingdom. The general populace was pleased to escape the heavy exploitation of the regional clans. Allotted lands allocated under the Kyubundan system were only held for the lifetime of the recipient and could not be sold or transferred. Upon the death of the user, the land reverted to the administration to prepare for the next round of redistribution. This rule prevented the concentration of land ownership among a few wealthy families. The imperial administration mandated that the redistribution of Kyubundan land be executed every 6 years, using the updated population registry as a guide. This complex process required a highly efficient bureaucracy to coordinate activities across the various rural districts. These regular reallocations maintained a stable balance of agricultural resources for the entire central Japanese government. To facilitate efficient administrative management, the imperial court applied a strict grid-based land survey system known to history as jori. All major agricultural plains in the Yamato basin were structured into equal square fields divided by narrow dirt pathways and irrigation canals. The jori system completely transformed the layout of all rural farms in Japan. Accompanying the land laws was the soyocho tax system, created to generate a stable source of revenue for the new imperial government. The so tax, or land tax, required citizens to pay approximately 2 to 3% of their harvested rice from the Kubundan fields. This constituted the primary tax on local agricultural production in Yamato. The yo tax, or labor service, was a mandatory work obligation for adult males between the ages of 20 and 60. Each year, citizens had to work 10 days on national public works projects, such as building capitol palaces or local canals. They could also pay silk or cotton fabric to substitute for this labor. The cho tax or tribute tax required citizens to pay local specialty goods, such as salt, paper, iron tools, or dried seafood. For distant regions where transporting heavy rice was impractical, the cho tax provided a highly practical and flexible option. This collection mechanism allowed the court to acquire a diverse range of valuable goods. Every year, thousands of citizens had to carry these soyocho tax products on foot over hundreds of kilometers to the Naniwakayo capital. This long journey caused many travelers to die from exhaustion, disease, or animal attacks along the primitive roads. However, the strict laws of the court compelled the people to comply with these rules. The central government used this massive tax revenue to construct magnificent wooden palaces and maintain a permanent imperial army. It also financed the salaries of the expanding group of civil officials stationed at the capital. The growing wealth of the Naniwakayo royal court entirely surpassed the combined economic resources of any remaining regional clan families. For national administrative organization, the country was divided into roughly 60 provinces called kuni, which were further subdivided into districts called gun and local villages called ra. This systematic division completely replaced the chaotic and unmapped territories of the older independent tribes. Each administrative unit was clearly defined by written geographical boundaries in the Yamato basin. A provincial governor called a kokushi was dispatched by the central court to manage each kuni for a fixed 4-year term. The kokushi held full responsibility for collecting taxes, resolving local legal disputes, and maintaining military security within their assigned territory. They served as the main administrative extensions of the emperor in these remote areas. At the district level called gun, the court chose to appoint former local leaders to the office of gunji to leverage their regional family influence. The gunji assisted the dispatched kokushi with tax collection and managed the population directly at the local level. This clever inclusion greatly helped reduce resistance from the older regional elites. Each village called a rai consisted of roughly 50 individual households, managed by a local village chief responsible for agricultural production and tax coordination. This close administrative control from the center down to individual houses minimized instances of tax evasion. The absolute authority of the emperor now reached into every single corner of Yamato society. At the central governmental level, the court established 2 supreme administrative bodies called the Jingikan and the Daijokan. The Jingikan supervised Shinto religious rituals to pray for national prosperity and emphasized the sacred lineage of the imperial family. The Daijokan served as the supreme administrative council to execute all daily state affairs within the country. The Supreme Administrative Council, called the Daijokan, directly supervised 8 specialized ministries, including the Ministry of Central Affairs and the Ministry of Military Affairs. This administrative structure was copied directly from the 6 ministries model of the Tang Dynasty to manage the state professionally. This reform ended the traditional era of governance based on clan customs. To operate this new administrative system, the court abolished the traditional cabin titles that granted hereditary privileges to specific aristocratic families. Instead, they established a structured system of official ranks called kani, based entirely on individual performance and loyalty. The appointment of officials was decided by the emperor based on annual evaluations of their work. Officials with high ranks were granted formal caps and silk robes of specific colors to define their positions during court ceremonies. These distinctive caps made from stiff black silk and belts, adorned with animal horns, became status symbols of the new bureaucracy. Court officials were required to act in accordance with strict Confucian administrative rules. The introduction of this official rank system allowed the royal family to build a bureaucracy loyal directly to the throne. These administrators no longer relied on the independent power of their respective clans, but depended entirely on the salaries paid by the emperor. Their personal loyalty served as a shield protecting the centralized Yamato state. During this transformative era, the official title of the monarch was changed from the traditional Akami to the grand term Tenno, translating to heavenly sovereign. This new title declared that the supreme power of the emperor was granted directly by the mandate of heaven. The sovereign ruled the nation as the central political authority of Japan. Although the Taika reforms introduced many progressive developments, the new policies also faced strong resistance from conservative regional factions. Many powerful families in distant provinces deeply resented the loss of their traditional lands and hereditary administrative authority. They collaborated to falsify population counts and secretly collected private taxes from local farmers in their own districts. Among the dissatisfied nobles, Soga no Kura Yamada no Ishikawa, who was a critical ally during the initial coup, became a tragic victim of political rivalry. In the year 649, rivals falsely accused Ishikawa of plotting a rebellion against Crown Prince Naka no O. Realizing he could not prove his innocence, Ishikawa committed suicide at Yamadadera Temple. The tragic death of Ishikawa served as a cold warning sent by Crown Prince Naka no O to all aristocratic families. Anyone who showed hesitation or threatened the execution of the centralizing reforms would face a similar fate. This harsh policy successfully maintained imperial court discipline during the turbulent early years of this reform era. In 654, Emperor Katoku died in Naniwakayo after a period of severe illness, leading to the reascension of Empress Kagyoku under the new title of Empress Seimei. Crown Prince Naka no O remained the active regent, directing all major political and military decisions of the state. The administration continued to strengthen the centralized system of government. During the reign of Empress Seimei, the court sent multiple diplomatic missions called kentoshi across the stormy sea to China. These envoys faced dangerous navigation across the East China Sea to retrieve new legal texts and administrative records. They also brought back advanced knowledge of medical science and astronomy from the Tang capital of Chang'an. In 660, the friendly Korean kingdom of Baekje, which was a traditional ally of Yamato, was invaded and destroyed by the alliance of Tang China and Silla. Baekje representatives sent messengers to the Yamato court to plead for military assistance to restore their country. Empress Seimei decided to relocate the capital to Kyushu to direct this campaign. Before the troops could depart, Empress Seimei died at the Asakura Palace in Kyushu in the year 661. Prince Naka no O assumed supreme command of the army, but delayed his official coronation to focus entirely on the war effort. He mobilized more than 20,000 soldiers to cross the sea to the Korean peninsula. In the 8th month of 663, the Yamato forces engaged the elite naval forces of Tang China at the Battle of Baekje. The superior strategy and shipbuilding techniques of the Tang fleet resulted in the burning of over 400 Yamato warships. This massive defeat forced the Yamato military leaders to withdraw their surviving troops back to Japan. This defeat at Baekje taught Yamato leaders a painful lesson about the vast military gap between their state and China. Fearing a potential invasion by Tang and Silla forces, Prince Naka no O ordered the construction of defensive fortifications along the coasts of Kyushu. Large stone defensive walls were constructed to guard critical landing sites. The administration constructed the Mizuki defensive wall at Dasefu to block enemy troops from advancing into the interior. They also established wooden watchtowers and signal fires on mountain peaks throughout the western provinces to warn of incoming fleets. This military emergency accelerated the court's efforts to centralize administrative authority over the entire country of Japan. After years of serving as regent, Prince Naka-no-o officially ascended the throne in 668 as Emperor Tenji. The coronation was held at the Omiatsu Palace situated on the shores of Lake Biwa, where he relocated the capital to escape maritime threats. Emperor Tenji was determined to complete the administrative centralization of the state. Emperor Tenji issued the Omi Ryo Code in the year 668, representing the first written administrative code in Japanese history. The Omi Ryo consolidated the various administrative regulations regarding land division and official ranks implemented since the initial Taika Reforms. This code established a firm legal basis for the authority of the new imperial court. Under Tenji's administration, the first comprehensive nationwide household registry, known as the Kogo Nenjaku, was completed in the year 670. This registry recorded the ancestral lineage and family names of all citizens, providing a permanent legal basis for historical imperial taxation. The Kogo Nenjaku successfully resolved ongoing land ownership disputes among the older regional clan families. Emperor Tenji died in late 671, leaving a violent succession struggle between his young son and his experienced brother. His son, Prince Otomo, assumed power in the capital of Omi, while his brother, Prince Oma, raised an army in the mountainous region of Yashino. This division escalated into the Jinshin War in the year 672. The Jinshin War lasted for several months, with fierce combat occurring near the capital and the Yamato Plains. Prince Oma allied with the powerful eastern clans to defeat the imperial forces of Prince Otomo. Prince Otomo failed to maintain control and committed suicide, ending his short reign and leaving Oma as the sole ruler of Japan. Following his military victory, Prince Oma ascended the throne as Emperor Temu. He relocated the capital back to the Asuka Valley and constructed the magnificent Asuka Kiyomihara Palace as his official residence. Emperor Temu used his absolute post-war authority to advance the centralization policies of the Taika Reforms to their highest level in Japanese history. Emperor Temu confiscated all private weapons held by the local clans and prohibited them from maintaining independent military forces. He established a national peasant army where soldiers were drafted directly from tax-paying farming households under central command. This monopoly on violence allowed the imperial court to preserve internal security and defend the entire Yamato realm. To establish a more complete legal system, Emperor Temu ordered the systematic drafting of a comprehensive code called the Asuka Kiyomihara Ryo. This code aimed to standardize criminal penalties and administrative guidelines according to traditional Chinese legal principles. However, Emperor Temu died in the year 686 before this massive legal project could be fully finalized. The widow of Emperor Temu succeeded him and officially ascended the throne as Empress Jito. Empress Jito continued the administrative reforms of her late husband, publishing the Asuka Kiyomihara Ryo in the year 689. She also completed the next nationwide population registry in the year 690, which further strengthened tax collection efforts across the country. To establish a permanent administrative center modeled after the Tang Dynasty, Empress Jito constructed the new capital of Fujiwara-kyo in the year 694. Fujiwara-kyo was the first city in Japan built on a grid layout closely resembling the city of Chang'an. The central palace was surrounded by solid dirt walls and wide straight dirt avenues. The legal codification reached its absolute peak in 701 during the reign of Emperor Monmu, with the official promulgation of the Teiho Code. This code was drafted by a committee of scholars led by Prince Asakabe and Fujiwara no Fuhide. The Teiho Code represented the most complete legal compilation of civil and penal rules in Yamato. The historical Teiho Code divided the legal system into two main sections: Ritsu, representing criminal law, and Ryo, representing administrative law. Ritsu outlined specific punishments from whipping to banishment and execution for serious crimes, such as treason or theft. Ryo entirely regulated the daily operations of the central ministries and the provincial administrations across Japan. With the formal enactment of the Teiho Code, Yamato officially entered the ritsuryo era, meaning a state governed by written administrative and penal laws. All aspects of social life, from marriage and inheritance to military service and taxation, were regulated by written statutes. This marked the absolute end of the primitive tribal era in Japan. To train a new class of professional administrators capable of implementing the ritsuryo laws, the court established the Daigakuryo Academy at the capital. Children of elite aristocratic families studied Confucian classics, administrative law, and mathematics. Only those students who passed the rigorous examinations were systematically appointed as imperial government officials throughout the entire Japanese country. In the year 708, the imperial court began minting and circulating Japan's first official copper coins, named wadakachin. These coins were modeled directly after the Kaiyuan Tongbao coins of the Tang Dynasty in terms of shape, size, and weight. Minting copper currency helped facilitate commercial activities and tax payments in the capital region of Nara. In 710, the court decided to move the capital city from Fujiwara-kyo to the new city of Hijo-kyo, located in Nara. Hijo-kyo was constructed as a scaled replica of the Tang capital of Chang'an, featuring wide streets laid out in a grid pattern. Constructing this massive city demonstrated the growing prosperity of the Yamato state. At the Hijo-kyo capital, the imperial palace was located at the far north, facing south along the central Suzaku Avenue. This specific layout reflected Confucian political philosophy, where the sacred emperor sat at the north facing south to govern his subjects. Various monumental wooden administrative structures were constructed throughout the new capital city of Nara. The imperial court entirely sponsored the building of grand Buddhist temples, such as Tadaijai and Kafukujai, directly inside the capital city. Buddhism was heavily patronized by the imperial family to request spiritual protection for the Japanese ritsuryo state. The creation of massive bronze Buddha statues demonstrated advanced valuable local metal castings of the Nara era. Provincial governors called kokushi were required to return to the Hijo-kyo capital annually to submit detailed administrative reports and collected provincial taxes. They brought the newly updated koski registers so that central officials could review population changes. This reporting mechanism allowed the central court to maintain close control over all local resources in the country. The central court also established a network of post stations along the main highways, connecting the Hijo-kyo imperial capital with the distant provinces. This complex system allowed imperial messengers to transmit official commands and tax receipts quickly. This rapid communication helped prevent regional rebellions before they could gather strength in the outer provinces of Japan. An official medical system was also established in the capital through the creation of the Royal Medical Bureau. Royal physicians were trained in traditional Chinese medical science to care for the royal family and court officials. Rare medicinal herbs from the provinces were collected at the capital as part of the official Cho tax program. The adoption of the Tang imperial model also deeply influenced clothing styles, formal etiquettes, and court music in Japan. Scribes at the Hijo-kyo palace were required to bow in accordance with the ceremonial rules of the Chinese court. Musicians performed gagaku music on traditional wind instruments during major imperial banquets sponsored by the Japanese emperor. The education system at the Daigakuryo Academy also expanded to include subjects such as national history and classical literature. Elite scholars systematically utilized Chinese characters to write down the records of the entire country for the first time. This academic progress eventually enabled the compilation of the two historical ancient chronicles Kojiki and Nihon Shoki. The Taika Reforms, which spanned more than half a century, transformed the basic political structure of the Yamato kingdom. From a loose coalition of semi-independent regional clans, the entire country successfully transitioned into a highly centralized legal state. The supreme authority of the emperor was now maintained through written laws instead of random military coercion. Although the Tang Dynasty model was adopted widely, the Yamato court adapted the Chinese rules to fit local traditions. Unlike China, where dynasties were repeatedly overthrown, Japan preserved the belief in a single eternal imperial lineage descended from the sun goddess Amaterasu. The emperor always remained both the divine priest and political ruler of the Japanese nation. The new taxation system under the Teiho Code provided stable and significant financial resources for the Yamato court. The constant flow of rice, silk, and local craft goods filled the treasury of the Hijokaio Palace. This economic stability successfully financed the construction of grand Buddhist monuments and capital wooden structures in Nara during the 8th century. However, maintaining the massive imperial ritsuryo administration placed a heavy tax burden on individual rural farming families. To escape the constant demand for taxes and labor services, many farmers decided to flee their allotted Kubundan fields. This migration created serious local labor shortages in the provinces and reduced the amount of harvested rice at Hijokaio. The decline in the agricultural labor force forced the imperial court to modify the original land laws of the Teiho Code. They slowly allowed private ownership of reclaimed land to encourage farmers to clear wild forests. This political shift marked the beginning of private estates called shun, which would eventually undermine the public land system. By the late 8th century, the administrative challenges of Hijokaio prompted Emperor Kammu to search for a new location for the imperial government. In the year 794, Emperor Kammu moved the capital to Heian-kaio, marking the formal beginning of the Heian period. This relocation aimed to escape the political influence of Nara's powerful Buddhist temples. Although the Jori fields and Kubundan land distribution faded over time, the centralized administrative structure first established by these reforms endured. The concept of an absolute sovereign supported by a professional bureaucracy became the lasting legacy of the Taika era. The Yamato royal house successfully survived centuries of political and social transformations in Japanese history. Ancient chronicles such as the Nihon Shoki, compiled in the year 720, provided detailed accounts of the violent Isshin incident and the subsequent Taika reforms. These historical writings served as guidebooks for subsequent generations of emperors to learn how to manage and protect their sovereign authority. This literature preserved the memory of Yamato's political unification. Archaeological excavations conducted at the historical sites of Naniwa-kaio and Fujiwara-kaio during the 20th century officially confirmed the grand scale of these reforms. The discovered massive foundation columns and clay roof tiles modeled after Tang styles show the immense effort dedicated to modernization. These artifacts provide tangible proof of this administrative transformation in ancient Japan. In the mountains of Nara, the Tanzan shrine, dedicated to the memory of Nakatomi no Kamatari, preserves an ancient painting of the secret Kemari meeting. The artwork displays the two historical figures conversing quietly under a red maple tree to plan the coup. This site remains a lasting symbol of their historic friendship and collaboration. The Gamaoyama ancient tomb, believed to be the burial place of the state advisor Takemuko no Kuramaro, stands quietly on a grassy hill. The tomb is oriented facing directly west toward the Tang capital of Chang'an, representing his lifelong connection to China. This silent tomb stands as a monument to his contribution to the country. At the ruins of the ancient Itabuki Palace in Asuka, only the gray foundation stones remain quietly on the grassy ground. The site where the violent Isshin incident of the year 645 occurred is today a peaceful park under the gentle rain. These ancient gray stones witness the long passage of historical events in Japan.